Man United, obviously a huge club, but what's happened? Why has there been such a fall off? You've been in the dressing room, you've played with the players, you know what it's like to be successful for Man United. How can it go from winning trophy after trophy to then now?
Manchester United, once the gold standard of English football, a club that dominated the Premier League era, collected Champions League titles, and produced icons of the game. But fast forward to today, and the same Manchester United sits in crisis. Their league finishes have plummeted. Managers come and go like a revolving door. Rivals tear them apart on the pitch. And transfers cost hundreds of millions, yet performances remain lifeless. What happened to this giant? And what the hell went wrong with Manchester United? Today we're going to break it all down, from the decline in league standings, to the failed transfer strategies, to the collapse in player mentality, and the tactical confusion that's left this once great side unrecognizable. So let's start with the harsh reality of where Manchester United is right now. The 2024-25 Premier League season was nothing short of disastrous. United finished 15th, their lowest league position since 1989-90. They ended with 42 points, scoring only 44 goals while conceding 54. To put that into perspective, those 42 points were the club's fewest in the top flight since the relegation campaign of 1973-74. This was a collapse of historic proportions. The numbers alone tell the story. United's defense was fragile, leaking goals in every competition. The attack was blunt, registering the lowest tally of any Premier League season in club history. Put together, it explains why they found themselves closer to a relegation battle than to a Champions League push. And it wasn't just about the league table either. The collapse was visible across competitions. Their European adventure ended in heartbreak in Bilbao, where Tottenham Hotspur beat them 1-0 in the Europa League final thanks to a Brennan Johnson strike. Just imagine that. The Spurs, a club long mocked for falling short on big stages, lifting a European trophy at United's expense. That defeat didn't just cost them silverware. It meant no European football at all for the 2025-26 season. And in domestic cups, there was no salvation either. They were knocked out of the FA Cup in the 5th round by Fulham, losing on penalties, and they fell in the EFL Cup quarterfinals, losing 4-3 away to Tottenham. For a club that prides itself on competing for trophies, the campaign ended trophyless. The first time since 2021-22 that United failed to win any silverware. So how did the club respond? By falling into managerial chaos. Erik ten Hag, who had once been hailed as the man to restore discipline and tactical identity, was sacked on October 28, 2024. At the time, United were 14th in the league and already wobbling in Europe. His strict approach had worked in moments, but he just couldn't solve the deeper structural problems eating away at the squad. Then in came Ruud van Nistelrooy as a caretaker. A club legend, certainly, but without the managerial track record needed to steady the ship at this level. The results didn't improve. And less than 2 weeks later, United turned to Ruben Amorim, the Portuguese coach admired for his work at Sporting Lisbon. He was officially announced on November 1st and began his tenure on November 11th. For some, this kind of felt like the beginning of a new era, a chance to bring fresh tactical ideas to Old Trafford. But reality hit hard. Amorim's preferred back three system, which was so effective in Portugal, never seemed to suit the players he inherited. Performances were flat, confidence drained away, and perhaps the lowest point of all came in the Carabao Cup at the start of the new season. On August 27, 2025, Man United were eliminated by League Two side Grimsby Town, losing on penalties by a scoreline of 12 goals to 11. That wasn't just an upset, it was humiliation. Even Wayne Rooney, a United legend, said after that game that something is broken inside the club. Amorim himself admitted in a press conference that he'd been overwhelmed by the scale of the job. By the end of August 2025, United had played 2 league matches, losing 1-0 at home to Arsenal on the opening weekend and drawing 1-1 away at Fulham. 1 point from 2 matches, Plus, the Grimsby disaster in the Cup left Amorim under massive pressure. And names like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Eddie Howe, and Gareth Southgate were already being linked as potential successors. The club looked kinda leaderless, and the revolving door of managers have left the players confused and uninspired. Now let's step into the dressing room, cause no tactical system works if the players don't believe in it. Reports from Old Trafford suggest a fractured squad, low confidence, and a lack of trust in the manager's plan. Amorim publicly criticized the team's lack of intensity. He even hinted that players were sending a message with their performances, almost deliberately underperforming. Now, whether or not that's actually true, the absence of leadership on the pitch is undeniable. Young players like Kobe Mainu, once seen as the heartbeat of the future midfield, were frustrated by inconsistent roles. Senior players like Bruno Fernandes, still the captain, were visibly carrying frustration, constantly trying to drag an incoherent team forward. But football isn't won by individuals, and United no longer looked like a team. They looked like 11 men in red shirts, each with their own agenda, and none pulling in the same direction. And that leads to the bigger question: when did all this really begin? The truth is, this collapse didn't happen overnight. After winning the FA Cup in 2024, there was hope that United had turned a corner. But the 2023 through 24 season already showed cracks, as United slipped into mid-table and the squad's defensive frailties grew. By October 2024, with Ten Hag sacked, the cracks became craters. This isn't just one bad season. It's the culmination of over a decade of mismanagement. Since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, United have failed to build a coherent football identity. The revolving cast of managers, the constant tactical resets, and the poor recruitment policies all led us here. If you're still with me and you want more deep dives like this, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown of your favorite clubs. Now, let's get back into why United's transfer policy might just be their biggest weakness of all. Manchester United have not been shy in the transfer market. In fact, they've consistently outspent rivals in fees and wages. In the summer of 2024 alone, they brought in Joshua Zirkzee, Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt, Manuel Ugarte, and Nussair Mazraoui. On paper, this was a promising mix of young talent and experienced internationals. In practice, it was chaos. The problem wasn't the money, it was the lack of cohesion. Zirkzee looked like an odd fit in a team that rarely created high-quality chances for him. Ugarte struggled because there was no consistent midfield shape around him. De Ligt and Yoro were dropped into a defensive line that changed week to week, sometimes a back three, sometimes a back four, but never stable. Rather than solving problems, these signings highlighted the lack of a clear plan. And financially, the club was forced to sell homegrown academy talents to comply with profit and sustainability rules. That meant losing identity players while paying big wages to new signings who failed to make a consistent impact. Compare that to Manchester City. Every signing Pep Guardiola makes is tailored to his system. At United, transfers feel like panic buys, disconnected from a long-term vision. And when recruitment is messy, tactics often follow the same path. Amorim's three-at-the-back system left defenders exposed, midfielders isolated, and forwards unsupported. At Sporting, the system thrived because the squad was built for it. At United, it exposed every weakness. Just look at the draw against Fulham in August 2025. United's build-up was slow and predictable. Midfielders couldn't dictate tempo, and the forwards were stranded up front. Even Andre Onana, brought in for his distribution, looked shaky under pressure. Fans and pundits began to ask, what is United's style of play? Under Ferguson, everyone knew. Even under Mourinho or Solskjaer, there was a recognizable identity. But under Amorim, United looked confused, caught between philosophies, and unable to execute any of them. So what the hell happened with Manchester United? It wasn't one disaster. It was a collection of them, dropping to their lowest league finish in decades. Constant managerial upheaval, painful losses to rivals and humiliations in cups, a broken mentality in the dressing room. Over a decade of poor recruitment, transfers that cost a fortune but lacked a plan, and tactics that never fit the players. Man United aren't failing because they lack talent. They're failing because they lack identity. Until the club fixes its structure, chooses a long-term manager, and builds a squad with a clear purpose, the cycle of failure will continue. So, what do you think? Can United recover from this, or is the club destined to spend more years in chaos? Let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the breakdown. Subscribe for more deep dives into football's biggest stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Until next time.